all the parts, and that was a continual process for us.
If we couldn't have got this wind tunnel at Port Columbus, it would have been a major hurdle for us. We would have probably had to go to Europe to do the wind tunnel work. So having it there was a big key. I think because we'd never done it before, the standard that we set ourselves was very high. We accepted no compromise in that area, and we put a lot of time and money into making the model. Just learning how to make a model was a big step. And I think the rolling road itself, the help we got from people in doing that, most people said, well, it's going to take you 2 years to sort it out. It didn't. We had it up and running really in 60 days. So, you know, I can't emphasize enough the aerodynamic aspect and the tools that we created and people gave us to make this part of the project work. And Don designed a wooden mock-up of the tub, and while Scott was still on crutches, still on a back brace, we had him up to Columbus and we sat him in the wooden mock-up and said, you know, do your hands fit? Is the gear lever in the right place? Your knees to clear everything? And I think the fact we did that was a big help, because we did find a couple of little things to Scott that he needed changed. So we could change it on the wooden model before we made the real piece. So again, I think that's an example of the attention to detail that we took in all sorts of areas. In the early 80s, March introduced a car that was very successful. You could buy one, so you bought it. But I think it's starting to change the other way. Now it's so competitive, you've got to control your own destiny a little bit more, which is what we wanted to do. So it became logical to me, why the hell build a car in England when I thought you could build one here. The engine as an aerodynamic device now is becoming critical. The size of the engine is critical. It's not just the horsepower. You can make 1,000 horsepower, but if the engine's too big, it's aerodynamically inefficient. You can't get a small body on it. So I think the next step for us is whatever we do with the engine is going to be looking at the external size of the engine, not so much the horsepower. Now, Jimmy, I think you know the history of this team, and that's always been our strong point, is we make mistakes. We've made some pretty classic ones, I think. But the big thing is we don't accept the norm. The standard that everybody else sets is not our standard. We copy people when we feel we have to, but we're innovative, and that's what I like about Truesports. We're innovative, and that's always been Jim Trimmer's philosophy. Do whatever it takes, but be innovative, and this is a classic example.
Steve, how will Truesports spell success in the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix?
I think success for us is, one, to finish the race, and I think to finish in the top 6, because the one thing that we're fighting, and a lot of other teams are fighting, is we've produced a package that we believe is going to be very successful. But it's like anything. It's like getting married for the first time. There's a lot more than what you know. You've got to make that relationship. You've got to learn what the car likes.
More than 2 weeks prior to the first race of 1991, the new car is loaded into a transport trailer in Hilliard. Following a cross-country trip to Los Angeles and a trans-Pacific flight on a 747, the car finally arrives in Surfer's Paradise, Queensland, Australia. Even as the race cars were being unloaded and reassembled, Scott Pruitt was thinking ahead to Sunday's race. And his thoughts were
anxious ones more than anything else, and just, you know, getting here even increased it a level. Just anxious to get back in the car, anxious to get racing, and just get the season going. I mean, it's been a year coming, and, you know, all the hard work and, you know, all the physical therapy and all that stuff. Finally, this is when it all begins.
Made in America continues at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix.
Was not the overriding factor then, right? So I went back and we said, okay, we're going to put front splitters on and we're going to make front wing extensions, which you've got the numbers, approximately what they're going to do, right? We came here, ran the splitters, ran the car this morning, still had some understeer in it. But again, listening to you, it wasn't a big complaint, it was more of a mid-corner push, right? A transition rather than a turn. Not like it is now. The thing we found was sensitive to front bar, likes a stiffer front bar. Right? We found the Packers, there's something in the Packers, and all it did was give you more overall grip, which is exactly right, because we can run a low ride on it, right?
Tomorrow is the first day of qualifying. No one on the Truesports team is satisfied with where they stand at the present time. More adjustments, more refinements, more of this, less of that. They'll change the engine, which means the crew works well beyond dinner time. No shrimp on the Barbie tonight. Made in America continues at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix in Surfers Paradise, Queensland, Australia. Than 48 hours before the start of the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix, the first of 2 qualifying sessions. Who'll get the coveted pole position? How will the other cars fare on this well-laid-out 2.8-mile street course along the shores of the Pacific Ocean? Everyone on edge. The first race of 1991. New cars for almost everyone. New engines. Questions still unanswered. Regardless of what happens today, there'll be a final qualifying session 24 hours from now. Still, everyone wants to do their level best. When the qualifying session comes to an end, Eddie Cheever's on the pole, 99.933 miles an hour. Pruitt has moved up 1 spot from yesterday's practice session. He's now 12th, 96.494 miles an hour.
The car overall just feels looser. The boost is all the way turned in. It's not blowing. It's a little under 45. Just overall, the car is kind of loose, just feeling all over the place.
Takes the front wing out, Don. Front wing out, let's see what the tyre pressures are. Because we've cut that flap off, that's probably what's making it loose now. Okay, so Dale, front wing, we want to take half a turn in the wastegate, please. Plus on a wastegate.
Kevin,
and front wing angle.
Can you get the waist minus a half?
Front wing's minus a degree. Tyres are 28, 26. We're going to come down 2 psi all the way around, Don.
Is it any better on the straight?
Yeah, 169 now.
As you can see, it's a team effort. Pruitt, Horn, Halliday, and the crew sharing information and thoughts about adjustments that must be made in the chassis, the suspension, the tires, the engine. It's maximum effort that leads to maximum performance. Once the changes have been made, the drivers are back on the track for the final qualifying session, just 24 hours before the race. Just as he's done the last 2 days, Pruitt moves up another notch, this time to 11th on the starting grid. Michael Andretti replaces Cheever as the fastest qualifier for the 65-lap, 181-mile race. His speed, 100.501 miles an hour. Pruitt not far behind, 97.403 miles an hour. Race day turns out to be one of the most beautiful weather-wise that we've had in more than a week in Surfers Paradise. 25 cars will line up on the starting grid. Everyone looking for the points and prize money that go to the winner. Pre-race activities once again bordering on the spectacular as more than 70,000 fans turn out for the long-awaited and controversial Gold Coast Grand Prix. It has not been sanctioned by FISA, but at this point, no one really cares. As the 25-car field takes the starter's green flag, no one knows that only 11 of the 25 cars will finish the race. Al Unser Jr., Michael Andretti, and Rick Mears will take turns grabbing the lead as Pruitt moves up at 1 point to 4th place. Pruitt was scheduled for a pair of pit stops, the first on the 17th lap. When he made his second pit stop on the 38th lap, Steve Horn said as Pruitt returned to the racing circuit that he would not have enough fuel to finish the race. Truesports' fuel tank was empty, and Horn said Pruitt did not have enough fuel on board to last beyond the 61st or 62nd lap. The only hope, he said, was a yellow caution flag that could slow the pace, allowing Pruitt to conserve his fuel. At 4:29 p.m., just 43 minutes before the race would end, there was a full course yellow when Al Unser Jr., Eddie Cheever, and Mario Andretti were involved in an accident. No one was injured, but the track was littered with debris. The yellow flag was out for 7 laps. That could be the racing luck Truesports was looking for. When the green flag dropped again, Horn told his driver,
Just slow it down a fraction more. Need to run 148, 148, please. Slow it down a bit.
Moments later, with Pruitt holding down 5th place, 61 seconds behind John Andretti, who'd taken the lead from Rick Mears on lap 62, Horn told Pruitt,
That current pace should make it to the end. Current pace should make it to the end. See if you can stay in front of Brayton, just behind you.
When the checkered flag dropped 2 hours and 12 minutes after the race got underway, the order of finish was John Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, and Scott Pruitt. This is what Pruitt heard as he crossed the finish line.
Good buddy. Good job. Hey, that's the highest we've finished in 12 months. Good job. Thank you very much. Sorry about the fuel.
Made in America continues from Australia's Gold Coast and Surfer's Paradise. Talk about playing it close to the vest. That racing luck you always hear about definitely played a major role in Pruitt being able to conserve fuel during the 7 laps under yellow. When he crossed the finish line in 5th place, 73 seconds behind Andretti, the crew staged a celebration that's usually reserved for a winner. But just 1,500 yards after crossing the finish line, Pruitt ran out of fuel, coasted the rest of the way around the track, and in fact had to be pushed the final 75 yards after coming to a complete stop on the pit entry lane. Before the race, there were those who had their doubts about the new Truesports car.
Well, Jimmy, the name of this game is winning, and I think until we won a race, there's still going to be doubters. But I think deep down, we all know we've got a lot of potential with this car. More than anything, I think we've got a lot of work to do on the engine rather than the chassis. You know, I'm convinced we made the right move, and today probably helped prove that a little bit. And I think if we could just get a little bit more support and a bit more effort on our part, I'm absolutely convinced this team can dominate like it used to.
Not only did Pruitt have to worry about fuel consumption, his rear brakes began to give him trouble about halfway through the race.
We have a lot of work to do. You know, I can't say enough about Steve and Barbara and the whole team. I mean, they worked so hard down here because it's a new car and they had to do, you know, a bunch of changes with it, modifications with it down here, and they rose to the occasion. They worked their butts off.
This was one that made everyone connected with Truesports and Red Roof Inns feel good. About themselves, the team, the various sponsors. Everything that's needed to make a dream come true fell into place. The one person who felt it more, perhaps, than anyone else was Truesports president Steve Horn.
I think it's a big victory for all the guys on the team, and a big victory for Scott, because that's the highest we've finished in about 14 months. And we know we've got a lot of work to do, but I think it's an excellent start to a pretty serious program.
The questions now are these. What do you do for an encore? Where do you go from here? What's next? Red Roof Inn's Barbara Truman summed it up, perhaps, in just 3 words.
Onward and upward.
The third part of Jim Truman's dream has now been finalized. The entire dream has come true. Made in America has been presented by Red Roof Inn. For toll-free reservations, please call 1-800-THE-ROOF. And brought to you in part by Nationwide Auto Parts. Don't just get it right at Nationwide.